Welcome to the deep dive. I want you to imagine a child who is, just the loudest, funniest kid in your living room.
Oh, yeah. Like the total life of the party.
Right. They're cracking jokes, they're directing all the games, just totally vibrant. But the second they step onto a school campus, they literally lose the ability to speak.
It's like a switch flips.
Exactly. Their posture shrinks, their eyes just hit the floor, and they practically disappear. And, the adults around them, they often just smile and say, oh, they're just shy, they'll grow out of it.
Which is such a dangerous thing to assume.
Right. So today, we're doing a deep dive into why that exact phrase is masking this massive, completely invisible crisis happening in our K-12 schools right now.
Yeah, because these kids aren't just shy. They're actually trapped in a biological fear response. And well-meaning adults are just, completely missing the signs.
It's wild. Okay, let's unpack this. Because waving off these symptoms as just shyness, it feels to me like ignoring a flashing check engine light on your car just because the car is still technically moving down the road.
That is a perfect way to put it.
So what is the actual fundamental difference here? I mean, mechanically speaking, between normal childhood shyness and a clinical disorder?
Well, the distinction is really everything. Shyness is just a temperament trait. It's, part of a child's natural baseline.
Right.
A shy child might be a little quieter in a new situation. They take time to assess the room. But if you send that shy kid out to a busy playground, they might stand by the fence for, 5 or 10 minutes.
Just kind of scoping it out.
Exactly, figuring out the dynamics. And eventually their nervous system settles down, they join in, and they actually enjoy recess. It doesn't cause any significant impairment in their life.
Well, they just need a minute to warm up the engine, essentially. But they still go down the slide.
Precisely. They still play. But the data shows roughly 7% of children meet the criteria for something entirely different.
7%.
Wow. Yeah. Social anxiety disorder, or SAD. In a standard classroom of 30 kids, that's at least 2 students who are silently suffering.
That's a lot of kids.
It is. This is a clinical condition. It's characterized by a persistent, intense fear of social or performance situations. The core mechanism is this profound, irrational fear of being judged or, evaluated negatively.
So back to the playground example then. How does that look?
Right. So a child with clinical social anxiety doesn't just hang back by the fence to warm up. Their amygdala.
The fear center of the brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The amygdala is sounding a massive catastrophic alarm. They might dread that specific recess period for days beforehand. The anticipation alone is agonizing.
Wait, I'm struggling with where we actually draw the line here, though. I mean, kids cry and throw tantrums about school all the time.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
I've seen kids completely melt down at morning drop-off. If a kid cries once before a play date or has a Tuesday morning meltdown, does that mean they're suddenly part of that 7%?
No, not at all. That's a fantastic point. And it's exactly why the clinical diagnostic manuals like the DSM-5 are incredibly strict.
Okay, so a single tantrum doesn't count.
Right. Or even, a couple weeks of clinginess after a bad weekend. That does not equal a disorder. To filter out just normal childhood behavior, the criteria draw a hard line on 2 specific fronts,
Sure.
duration and impairment. So for a diagnosis, this intense fear response, the crying, freezing, clinging, shrinking, or just totally failing to speak,
Right.
it has to consistently last for 6 months or longer.
It's 6 months? That is an enormous chunk of a child's life. Why is the timeline so long?
Well, because children undergo these massive cognitive leaps. Sometimes a child just suddenly realizes the world is, vast and unpredictable, and they pull back for a month to process it.
Oh, sure. Like a phase.
Exactly. It's a normal developmental phase. Or maybe a reaction to a stressor, like moving to a new house. The 6-month rule exists to rule out those temporary phases.
Got it. So if it lasts half a year, it's something else entirely.
Yeah. The brain is essentially stuck in a loop. And the second requirement is significant impairment. We aren't talking about a kid who's just a little grumpy about a birthday party.
Right.
We're talking about a fear so severe that the child is totally avoiding social situations or, enduring them with such intense distress that it breaks down their ability to learn or make friends.
Which brings us to a really perplexing contradiction. Here's where it gets really interesting, I think.
Okay, yeah.
If the clinical definition requires 6 solid months of severe impairment, how on earth is a child hiding that in a crowded school building for over half a year?
It sounds impossible, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, navigating a K-12 school for these kids must be like walking through a daily minefield. How does a teacher or counselor not immediately flag a kid who is in a state of paralyzing dread.
Because these children are absolute masters of camouflage. The disorder masks itself in ways that adults are culturally conditioned to either ignore or honestly to praise.
Is this exactly why it gets dismissed by adults? Because the symptoms just look like either a good, quiet student or, I don't know, a random stomach bug.
You hit the nail on the head. A student with this disorder isn't throwing a chair across the room. They aren't the squeaky wheel.
Right, they're the invisible wheel. They're the kid who never ever raises their hand, even when they know the answer.
Exactly. They avoid eye contact with peers and adults. They just try to blend into the wallpaper. And then there are the somatic symptoms.
The physical stuff.
Yes, the child isn't necessarily going up to the teacher and saying, I have social anxiety. They're going to the school nurse with intense stomach aches.
Right, and specifically on the mornings of, like, group projects or presentation days.
And we have to be clear, those physical symptoms are not faked. When the brain perceives a mortal threat, which is how social anxiety processes a simple class presentation.
Wow, a mortal threat.
Yes. It triggers the sympathetic nervous system. Blood is actually shunted away from the digestive tract to prepare the muscles for fight or flight. That stomachache is a very real physiological reality.
That is wild. And the avoidance behaviors go way beyond just sitting quietly in class. Right?
Oh, absolutely. These kids are skipping lunch entirely so they can hide in a bathroom stall. They refuse to use public restrooms at school. They're refusing play dates, sleepovers.
It's tragic, really. Every single transition in the hallway, every free period is just sheer terror. But to a teacher managing 30 kids, they just seem fine.
Right. Well, meanwhile, this disorder is fundamentally shaping the child's self-concept and completely destroying their peer relationships. But, the most jarring aspect of this camouflage is the dual personality effect.
Yes, the contrast is just mind-boggling.
Oh.
They act totally fine, vibrant, funny at home, but they are completely withdrawn at school.
And this creates a massive blind spot for parents. A parent sees this chatty, relaxed kid in the safety of their kitchen. So when a teacher calls and says, your child refuses to speak to anyone, the parent's brain kind of rejects it.
They just think, well, that's not the kid I know. They must just be a little shy in class.
Exactly. What the parent doesn't realize is that the paralyzing fear is entirely context-dependent. Home is safe from social evaluation. School is a constant threat.
So if the child is suffering silently in the bathroom, what is the long-term harm of just, letting them hide? A lot of people might think, well, middle school is tough. They'll grow out of it by high school.
The trajectory of inaction is actually devastating. The brain's fear center is essentially like a muscle.
A muscle. How so?
Every time a child avoids the cafeteria because they feel anxious, their brain registers a huge wave of relief. That relief reinforces the avoidance behavior.
Oh, wow. So they're effectively doing a bicep curl for their anxiety.
That is a brilliant way to put it, yes. The fear muscle just gets stronger and stronger. Avoidance is the fuel. Untreated childhood social anxiety commonly evolves into adolescent school refusal.
It snowballs.
It absolutely snowballs. First, you avoid the cafeteria, then a specific class. Eventually, the teenager simply refuses to walk through the front doors of the building at all.
So what does this all mean for the timeline? How tight is the window for parents and educators to intervene before this becomes a lifelong adult struggle?
The window is critical because adolescent untreated social anxiety very often snowballs into adult depression and substance use.
Substance use, really?
Think about it. If an adult has never learned how to tolerate social fear, but they have to survive job interviews or networking to make a living, how do they cope?
Oh, man. They reach for something to artificially lower those alarm bells.
Exactly. Very often, they use alcohol or drugs to self-medicate that unmanaged, paralyzing fear. It is a tragic but entirely preventable pipeline. The earlier we intervene, the better.
Because evidence-based early intervention is highly effective.
Right.
So if the trajectory of doing nothing is that severe, how do we actively disrupt it?
We have to rewire the response. And the gold standard for this is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, specifically using graduated exposure.
Graduated exposure. What does that actually look like for a kid in the real world?
Well, it relies on a biological process called habituation. You do not take a child with a severe fear of water and throw them in the deep end of the pool.
Right, that would be a nightmare.
Exactly. You start really, really small, gradual, planned practice. So in week 1, the therapist and the child might just stand in the hallway and look at the doors of the cafeteria.
Wait, just look at the door.
Just look at the doors.
Yeah.
The child's anxiety spikes, but they stay there. Eventually, their brain realizes, wait, nothing catastrophic is actually happening. The anxiety naturally drops. That is habituation.
That makes total sense. And then they scale it up.
Yes. Week 2, they might walk inside for 60 seconds. It's about teaching the nervous system that the threat is a false alarm. But you also have to do social skills coaching.
Right, because you can't just hope they magically know how to talk to people after avoiding eye contact for 3 years.
Exactly. You have to explicitly teach conversational mechanics, peer engagement, all of it. And there's also teacher consultation.
Like making small adjustments, giving them advance notice for presentations.
Yes, or doing structured peer pairing instead of the dreaded choose your own groups.
Well, picking your own groups is the worst if you're anxious. And what about medication? I saw SSRIs mentioned in the sources.
Yes, for moderate to severe cases, a licensed clinician might prescribe an SSRI. It basically takes the edge off the panic so the child can actually engage with the behavioral therapy.
Right. Now, I want to zero in on a part of the treatment that honestly kind of blew my mind. The parent coaching.
Ah, yes. Over-accommodation.
Hold on. So if a parent thinks they are helping by, say, always ordering for their kid at a restaurant because the kid is terrified, you're saying they're actually making the disorder worse.
It is incredibly hard for a loving parent to hear, but yes. Rescuing the child is like pouring gasoline on the fire.
Wow.
When a parent jumps in and speaks for them, their intention is pure love. But psychologically, what they are communicating to the child's brain is, you are right. This situation is too dangerous for you, and you need me to survive it.
Oh my gosh. By rescuing them, the parent is robbing them of the chance to see they could have survived the discomfort.
Exactly. They inadvertently maintain the anxiety. The brain never updates its threat assessment model. You have to rewire the entire family's response to the fear.
Which brings up a massive logistical problem.
Right.
Because if the treatment requires graduated exposure to a cafeteria, doing therapy in a quiet, isolated clinical office at 5 p.m. makes zero sense.
It has a massive blind spot. The exposure targets are the classroom, the hallway, the playground. Doing therapy outside of school completely misses those targets.
So how do we bridge that gap? Let's talk about that specific model down in Georgia, the MentalSpace school model, because it seems to completely solve this geographical therapy problem.
It fundamentally changes the landscape. MentalSpace School provides K-12 mental health support by actually embedding dedicated therapist teams directly into the schools via same-day teletherapy.
So they aren't pulling the kid out of the environment.
No. A student just goes to a secure room in their school, logs onto a session, and the therapist can coordinate those exposures right there inside the environment that's driving the symptoms.
That's incredible. It's like having a sports coach actually on the field with you during the game rather than just reviewing tape on a Sunday and hoping you play better next week.
That's a great analogy. And because they're integrated directly into the school, they aren't just treating the student in a vacuum.
Right, they're coordinated with the teachers and counselors too.
Yes. They consult with teachers, they run family counseling, they even provide crisis intervention, suicide and violence prevention, and staff wellness programs.
Wow. And administratively, this has to be huge for the schools. I know they manage all the strict privacy laws, so it's fully HIPAA and FERPA compliant.
Completely compliant,
Okay.
which is a huge relief for school districts.
And it helps Georgia schools hit that HB 268 compliance deadline coming up fast in July 2026, right?
Yeah.
For anyone listening who doesn't know, that's a major mental health mandate for schools.
Yes. It immediately gets them compliant, and the outcomes are staggering. They're seeing 89% improved attendance.
Which totally disrupts that school refusal pipeline we talked about.
Exactly. 92% reduced anxiety and an 85% family satisfaction rate. Plus, they use culturally competent, diverse, licensed therapists, which is so crucial for building trust.
But here's the biggest thing. We know the cost barrier is usually what stops kids from getting help. Private therapy is wildly expensive.
Yeah.
But MentalSpace removed that entirely.
They really did. It is $0 for students with Medicaid, and they are in-network with basically all major commercial plans.
Like Blue Cross, Cigna, Aetna, Humana, all of them.
Yes, United Healthcare, Peach State, CareSource, Amerigroup. It democratizes pediatric mental health care in a way we rarely see.
That is just phenomenal. So to bring this all together for you listening, whether you're an educator, a parent, or just an observant adult, do not dismiss persistent, intense, impairing shyness.
Please don't.
If a child is talkative at home but totally silent at school, or has mysterious stomach aches around school days, take that worry seriously. Reach out to a licensed clinician. You can look into the exact model we discussed today at mentalspaceschool.com or email them at mentalspaceschool@shiktrigitherapy.com.
It really can change a life. And, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building purely on that idea of the dual personality we discussed earlier.
Let's hear it.
Think about that child, the one who is vibrant, endlessly funny, and talkative at home, but completely frozen the second they step into a school hallway. How much of our society's future brilliance, creativity, and leadership is currently locked away inside a school bathroom during lunch? And what could we achieve if we simply gave them the tools to walk out?
Wow. What a powerful perspective to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep paying attention to the invisible struggles, keep questioning the simple explanations, and we will catch you next time.